Mr. Wells, now let us go to the mineral sector, and then we shall combine it with the oil and gas sector, because it's the same, almost the same. The mineral sector, you talk in your manifesto about improving the mineral sector, given the richness of Uganda's mineral endowments. Yeah. But we still see the mineral sector being managed by mafias, who to a larger extent are not even paying taxes. We have seen the Minister of Minerals, the State Minister for Minerals, of course with all the support of the President, having running battles in the old mine, in the gold mines in Mubende, having running battles with mafias in the gold mines in Buhweju, are you moving well in that sector?
You know, one time there was a senior citizen who died some time back, and I said that where you see flies, there is rotten meat. So in that respect, I want to say that those running battles should tell you that the government is not sleeping. It is interested in how it can sort out this sector, because probably that has been a challenge. And now by government intervening, it is now exposing who are those running these things illegally, and definitely there will be a fight. So the fights are not out of the blue. The fights are intended to streamline, and definitely, like you observed, is that these people who probably have been benefiting illegally may not take these battles lightly. They may also want to come and fight back. But I'm glad that you are able to realize and appreciate that the government is coming in to fight and try to create order and systems that should improve the sector. And it is true that we are endowed as a country, and the government took the innovation of doing a survey, and even an aerial survey of making sure that we know which mineral is where, and this is all there. And now what remains is now how best do we cause order in the sector by introducing policies and regulatory framework, and making sure that those who are in the sector are licensed. The President has gone ahead even to say we should not export raw minerals. Let's process them, let's refine them, and then we can be able to add value to them and add more.
Of course, that has been the President's dream and has been a song.
Yeah.
But if I can ask you, how much are you losing? First, as government. Second, as the ruling party. How much are you losing in terms of taxes to these artisanal miners, to these mafias who do not want to remit taxes to the sector?
I may not have the figure offhand, but I think this is a question that probably can be well answered by the Revenue Authority, which is responsible for tax mobilization and collection in this country. But what I know is that we definitely lose much because of the disorganization in the sector. And secondly, what the President has been trying to stop, that if we added value into these minerals, that means we could be exporting at a higher value, and at the same time that would also give us much more in terms of tax.
Well, can we get to the oil and gas sector?
Yeah.
You started heavily investing in that sector as a government and the ruling party with the hope of turning around and increasing employment way back in 2007. It's now we are talking about almost close to 15 years. We are not seeing oil being got to the surface.
Okay.
You have talked about putting up oil refineries, which you want to build in two phases. The first one, which is supposed to be done by now, which you are talking about, that you say that we'll be putting up about 30,000 barrels a day. And then in the second phase of the second refinery, that will be putting out about 60,000 barrels a day. But we are getting to the next term of the President in office in 2021. We have not seen even the first refinery that you dreamt of that should be running by now, producing about 30,000 barrels per day.
Right.
What's not happening?
That's true.
Dead on arrival?
But if you have been following the developments in the sector, then you must be aware that, like I said from the onset, that we are some sectors have to fit within the global dynamics. As a country, we may not have all the resources we want to say that since we want a refinery here, let's get this money and have the refinery started. This is a heavy capital intensive industry, and I think we need some investors who have the capital, and definitely there has been a lot of negotiations in this area, and as you are aware, the process of conclusion of some of these agreements have taken time, and definitely that affects the timelines, the target timelines of when we thought would be would have moved the oil to the surface. But we realize that despite that, other activities to support the industry are ongoing. For example, the compensations that of the resettlement of the people affected by where the industries will be are ongoing. You have seen that of late the president and the president of Tanzania have concluded the issue of the pipeline. You also know that the other issues during the negotiations which have been impacting on the production between Sinop and Total have also been concluded.
But so, before we get into the issue of the oil pipeline, because initially you were speaking strongly on the oil refinery.
Yeah.
How are you going to explain these to the voters, whom you really promised that at the tail end of this term,
yeah,
we'll be having a refinery running? What was the problem? Is it you have wrong people whom you are sending to negotiate contracts on behalf of government, or it's an issue of not having money in place?
Well, there are many factors at play, and like I said, we are not, we don't have, sometimes much as we are the owners of the resource, we don't have the final capital investment decision on the necessary resources that can take off this industry or that can take off this sector. So if you are inviting people who are going to bring their money, they will also come with their conditions. So the question has been, are these conditions palatable, favorable to us? And for us, if you have been following the story, you realize that at one point, some people seemed to have been in agreement with what we wanted, and we thought this would take off. Then all of a sudden, we see them withdraw. Then now that means we have to take another time and maybe wait for other prospective investors in the industry. So these are matters that you cannot just dictate on because you don't have the final say on what you want to do. You have other players within the sector, and you need them, and it's a question of how do you agree for all of you to end up
now, the oil pipeline deal.
Yeah.
Are you seeing this deal delivering what has been a long-standing dream?
Yeah.
For Uganda, because we also understand it's long overdue.
Yes, it's
so
true.
It's almost 2 years.
It falls back to the same. It falls back to the same thing we are talking about. It's all about the investors or those who are prospective to invest in this industry. What are their terms, and what are our terms as a country? And we must come to a point of agreement for each of us to see or to end up as a winner-winner. Otherwise, it's not fair. For the sake of saying, yeah, because we pledged the refinery, therefore let's be squeezed over the wall, and we want to please citizens, and then later citizens are on us when these things don't work well. And I'm glad that the president has been very steadfast in trying to navigate through these agreements and negotiations. And I think at the end of the day, as a country, we'll get something that is very beneficial to the citizens.
Well, let us wish you all the best in that sector. Let me take you on the education sector. It is a limping sector. We do understand overcrowding in the classes, overcrowding of pupils in the classes is becoming a menace. At the onset of UPE, Universal Primary Education, did you envisage this? That it would be a menace that you would require to resolve as well as yesterday?
Well, I wouldn't want to. I wish you would be fair to the to the thinkers, to the framers, and other citizens of calling it a menace. Probably what the government was trying to solve is how it can make every citizen literate. And probably what it had not anticipated was the kind of what I would call the interest to it. And to us as Ugandans, we should be able to see what would have happened if this kind of strategy had not been adopted. Where would it leave all these millions of Ugandans? Where would they be? Why would they miss out on the literacy agenda? So to me, the starting point is that, and especially you people in the media, you need to create a narrative that should appreciate that, yes, this was well intended to make Ugandans literate. However, the anticipation that we didn't know that it would bring these surges as the program is being implemented is another issue that can be discussed also in its own context. But it's not fair to say it's a menace when you are trying to bring many citizens out of illiteracy into a literacy bracket.
In your manifesto,
yes,
you talk about, you are saying that at the tail end of this term, you will have reduced the overcrowding of people in classes to a ratio of 50 to 1 people in classrooms. But we see that the success story towards that seems not be coming out clearly. We still have classrooms where you're having even 200 pupils or 150 pupils or 100 pupils being attended to by one teacher. We do see also a crisis in the area of accessories to be used. Books, one book being read by about 20 students or 20 pupils or 10. The houses of teachers, we have not seen them in a few areas, more especially schools in the urban centers, but schools in the rural Uganda, teachers still walk, still trek miles to come and teach in schools. So what has happened?
It's not that what has happened. First of all, there are various interventions that have been made into that direction. There is actually a policy, deliberate policy, to make sure every sub-county has a seed school to support that area. There has been a lot of intervention at making sure that there is a primary school at each parish level. For those where we don't have primary schools, they have built primary schools. And for those that the primary schools are existing and probably are helping the community, government has taken them on by grant aiding them, so that all this is intended to realize the targets. The accommodation, yes, it is still a challenge, but you will also, if you have moved across this country, you will also see that there is a lot of investment in that direction. And I also want to tell you that Uganda's population is not stagnant. Every other day, many other people are brought into the world, and all those will keep putting pressure on this. So these ratios, yes, we could have a target of those ratios, assuming that probably the population would be constant. But now, between me and you are much aware that the many Ugandans are still coming on board, and that distorts also the targeted planning on what we want in terms of service delivery, the affordability of the sanitary pads, so that they are affordable and they can be accessed to by our girls. One is through fiscal policies, so that the items, for those who want to go into manufacturing and who want to import raw materials, their inputs are VAT exempt, so that they can produce at a cheaper cost that does that. Then those which are bringing directly, importing directly, I think they are also exempted from certain taxes. So all this is meant to support the affordability. Then there is also what we call the menstrual hygiene awareness campaigns, which have also been going around, because this issue of sanitary pads is a new concept in the earth world. In our old days, I believe our mothers were there and they were surviving around it. So it's also how best we can also take on that knowledge and also improve on the awareness of how our girls can manage the menstrual hygiene and can also be able to
Is it
continue.
a project? Because we see many children, many pupils do drop out of school just because of that.
Yes, because there are reasons to that effect.
Is it a concern?
Yes,
to the ruling party?
It is a very concern. Actually, I will tell you that like that menstrual campaign, awareness campaign, is both worked on by the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education. And they have jointly been working on that, on ensuring how best the girls can manage their menstrual hygiene and can also continue with school. There could be factors like stigmatization and other related issues why probably having that menstrual issue pushing the girls out of school. Or there could be other factors why girls are still going out of school and they want to push it to this menstrual challenge. But like I said, is that the whole challenge was on the resources, because you see, if you introduce the support like the government had proposed, it would mean like wages, because every other year you would have these young girls coming to school, and that means you would need a budget to support that.
Now, let me get you into, which should be almost the last bit as we drive into the end of this talk show, the health sector. The health sector, well, we need to acknowledge that government has built several health centers, but these are just mere standing structures, which we do understand that some analysts have called described them as white elephants. Drugs are not there. People still sleep down. Those the attendants to the patients. Is this a concern of the party that actually facilities are there, but there are no services going on? We have seen a rampant theft of government drugs by health practitioners.
You haven't also seen rampant arrests of those who are involved?
It's a campaign that we did see about 3 years ago when Dr. Aquino was still working.
Don't personalize that. I think even up to recently, a few months ago, we went into COVID. There were arrests in Mbare of some of those culprits.
But do you acknowledge that these are challenges that you have been talking about? And how have you performed in the health sector in terms of addressing some of these issues?
The one which you have started on was the infrastructure challenge of trying to avail as many facilities as possible to the closest, which would call access. And in the last Manifesto Week report, the minister gave a statistic of 86%, whereby the access below 5 kilometers now. That's where we are. And to me, I think that is a very, very big step in the direction of availing their services. Now, when it comes to these other issues of policy nature, drug theft, absentees of health workers, well, I think the government is also trying to see, and it has even introduced some interventions. I know now they did a study like in the Eastern region, and they have introduced technology to check absenteeism, and we have seen a big change and a big drop in that challenge within the health sector within that region. So to dismiss and say that the government has not been concerned, to me I think is not fair. Yes.
But where are the drugs?
The drugs are there.
Most hospitals, you get in there
No,
and the patients tell you that they're being sent by medical practitioners to go and buy drugs out of the hospital in private pharmacies.
Sometimes you need to understand maybe how the whole system works. We could be also that could be now a challenge of corruption, where now individuals trying to take advantage of that for purposes of their personal gain, but not that the drugs are not there. And you remember at one point, even where they were referred, they would go and buy government drugs until the government decided to emboss these drugs, which are government, which are supposed to be supplied in government health facilities. So, you know, human nature sometimes is very complicated. You think you have solved this, then this one comes up. But that is how societies develop. So we cannot also say that because we have done this, it's an automatic solution to finishing the whole problem at once. You finish the problem of infrastructure of health facilities, the accommodation issue will come up, because now you want many people to be recruited to do the work.
Well, Mr. Washasha, yes. Time seems not to be our best ally.
Yeah.
As we drive to the end of this show, just one parting statement of yours.
Yeah.
Should Ugandans still have hope?
We could have still a few challenges in the software aspects. Those are the policy challenges which can be solved. But the commitment that was made by the president, the commitment that were made within this social contract are all on course, irrespective of the challenges that have come from time to time. I wanted to say that the commitments that were made by the president, the commitments that were documented in this social contract called the manifesto, have to a degree been addressed, despite the challenges along the way. And it is still the commitment of the party in government that all factors remaining constant, we should be able to deliver on them as we pledged them.
Thanks, Mr. Wills Bashasha, for being part of the Race 2021, a show where we discuss issues that affect the people, and we host people with sound minds. Thank you very much. And to our viewers, that marks the end of our interactive segment on the Race 2020 tonight. Stay better and avoid being bitter. Good night.